When I'm not busy doing my own decorating around my house or filming these YouTube videos, I constantly have YouTube playing in the background. And typically, what I like to have on is just like different home tours or like home and garden videos. I just really like to constantly be surrounded by beautiful interiors. And I do find when I'm watching these videos, it just gives you a better appreciation for interior design than just simply viewing them on Pinterest or on Instagram. One of my absolute favorite channels to watch these home tours on is Homeworthy. I just find a lot of the interiors they feature are really approachable. They're jam-packed with personality. And overall, it doesn't feel like super trendy spaces or spaces that are like out of reach for the average person. Even though they do feature a lot of high-end properties on this channel, I just feel like the interiors themselves still have so much personality and just a unique take on interiors. It's not like you're looking at spaces that couldn't be achieved in your own home. I just find there's lots of interiors that you could take inspiration from and actually try to implement them yourself. And I was actually super excited about one of the latest homes they featured. It's actually from a designer. Her name is Annie Sloan. This really stuck out for me because when I started my career, I worked in a furniture store and we used to sell this chalk paint brand, which is Annie Sloan chalk paints. So this is actually her business. She invented chalk paint in, I think, the 1990s or 2000s. And so I remember people coming into the furniture store and you knew, like from the minute these people walked into the store, they would be like, "Hi, I heard you sell Annie Sloan paint." So it was just like a running joke for us when we worked there. I personally was not a big fan of chalk paint back when I worked there. I honestly didn't have the best interior design sense or style at that time either. So now putting two and two together, I completely understand the people who are coming in for this chalk paint. I kind of thought to myself, like, why are you painting furniture? Like, what is all the buzz about this chalk paint or like these wax finishes that we also sold? And this is why these are the types of people, the people who are actually adding character to their home or doing like a fun project on the weekend. And it's just like crazy the evolution because now I feel like I'm that person. I am these people who used to come in and look for this chalk paint. So anyway, I love a full circle moment and I just thought that was a fun little tidbit to share. This home tour also fully allows me to understand who Annie Sloan is and the type of business that it translated to for her as well. Throughout the home tour, you will see just bold, bright pops of color. She's also included just so much of her own work. So whether that's furniture pieces that she's totally transformed with her chalk paints. I think her chalk paints can also be used in wall applications. So she has done a few feature walls in her different colors as well. So again, it's just really fun to see her business and how that's actually translated into her home and just her overall personality as well. And just to note before jumping into her home tour, my initial thoughts is I do think some people could watch this video and feel like, oh, her space feels a little cluttered. But one thing I will say is I feel as though her space truly is a reflection of her personality. And it doesn't actually feel cluttered to you when you are in a space that just has all of your own personal trinkets and your art collection and just things that you've collected over a lifetime are being displayed in your space. So again, from an outsider's perspective, I do understand how some people may look at this and feel like there's a little too much going on. But I just feel like when it is your own personal home and you're able to look around and see all of your things, it doesn't actually feel as cluttered to you or to the people who know you. So anyway, just something to keep in mind when you are watching these home tour videos. I feel like a common comment that I see on some of these is that it feels a little messy or a little cluttered. And again, from an outsider, it may be that way, but to somebody who lives in that space, it's not necessarily the case for them. Very first thoughts walking into our entryway here, I absolutely love the use of this pink color. I have seen other interior designers online talking about how they're so scared that pinks are coming back in. This was just a very prominent color in the 90s. I feel like everybody had a blush pink, like neutral wall color throughout their home. I am so excited excited for this trend to be coming in. Not that I feel like she's doing this because it's trendy or anything. I just think it is a very rich classical color, and it just adds so much warmth while still maintaining a bit of more of a like a neutral feel in the space. So I love this as the very first shade when you walk into her home. I think it's so beautiful. This is also our very first introduction into how well she's able to work with color and pattern. I think incorporating the yellow and black stripe just on the runner throughout the staircase, again, it's just like such a nice contrast against the pink that she has on the walls. And it just draws your eye up. You're adding so much interest right from the get-go. And I definitely think this is one of those tidbits you could take from a video like this and incorporate in your own home. It's so easy to recreate, and it just adds such a stunning look in an entryway. And I absolutely love in this entryway stairwell that she's using it as just a gallery display area for all of her artwork. As she goes through the tour, you do see that pretty much every single piece of art in her home has a story, whether or not she's picked it up from her travels, or if she's the artist, or if she actually knows the artist who made it. So I think it's just a great conversation starter in an entryway, and I love the feeling from right as the moment you enter her home, you're being immersed in her personality, and you're just getting to know her a little bit deeper. So I absolutely love that. I love how we're also starting to see the rollout of colors throughout her home. I love the use of blue around the doorways. She also has blue on her front door, which is just, I think, really balanced well with the pink. And as we're turning the corners, you can kind of see the peaks of green and other shades throughout her home. So you know it's about to get better. You can see right from the moment you enter that she's got lots of personality, and there's going to be lots of bold colors in her home. So because you can see the one sitting room off of this entryway is completely green, I like that she's carried this color down the stairwell as well. Initially, I thought this was a wainscoting, but it's actually kind of like a faux wainscoting. So this would be an example of a really easy DIY in your home. You don't always have to add an actual wainscoting wall or like a millwork wall. You can do just a faux painted detail, and it can add so much interest and so much personality. I do think it is just such a fun pop of the green, and I love the way she's done just this nice little blue stripe throughout. So this is tying in the blue from the doorways, it's tying in the green from the next room, and then she's also added those pops throughout on her artwork as well. So this is just a great example of how you really can cohesively tie so many different colors together in one space. You just have to be mindful and creative about the ways that you're going to be incorporating them in your home. So moving through into what she refers to as her sitting room, this is kind of like an example of two separate living spaces. So there is a wall dividing them just with an open doorway between. And I think this is, again, just a great use of color. She's got the main sitting room as this bright punch of green. And then as you look through into the rear part of the sitting room, it's more of a blue, but then she's incorporated very bright pops of oranges. So very fun bursts of color in these two spaces here. It is funny, like as she's walking through her space, she's like trying to psych herself up to begin talking about something. And there is just so much going on that you can tell she's almost just like a little overwhelmed, like, oh God, like, where do I begin? And for the most part, she typically likes to start describing her room through the artwork. So this is just a very good hint on how you can look at decorating your home. I think focusing first and foremost on your artwork can be just a really easy and inexpensive way to begin. She's got lots of great examples of artwork that she's done herself. I do think she's a great artist, but I wouldn't say the pieces she's made are unapproachable. This has been something that I've even been considering in my own life. Is I spend so much time either watching TV or scrolling TikTok or just being on social media. And I do think when you are somebody who might just want to sit down and sketch or sit down and do, just a little abstract painting, these are little hobbies that are fun pieces to decorate your home with. So if you're looking to incorporate a hobby into your lifestyle and you're in the process of decorating your home, I do think just making your own artwork or finding a fun vase or piece of furniture that you want to transform with some paint, these are great pieces to incorporate in your home, and they don't have to be super expensive expensive to make either. Her artwork as well as the painted furniture pieces also allow for colors to flow from room to room. So I do think this is a great way of tying in two spaces that are painted completely different colors. In each room, you're still getting those colors scattered throughout. As I mentioned, everything in her home just feels so collected and curated, even down to each individual pillow on the sofa. She knows where it's from, if it's from a specific designer, if it's a print that's made from some of the colors she's had in her business. She notes all that. So I do love the idea that these homes just take so much time to decorate. And she does make it clear that her philosophy with design is kind of a slow approach. So this house has taken her years to decorate. She is not looking to decorate her home in just like one quick process. This has taken years, if not decades of her life to get it to the point it is now. A very common question I get asked from people is how to incorporate feature paints and feature colors in your home. Typically, my response is to paint something unique. So whether that's like an architectural detail or just like a unique shaped wall is a great way to go. But I love in her back sitting room here, she's got most of the room painted this dark blue color, but then towards the back of the room, she's got curtains coming over a window. And then she's just hung, I think just like DIY, like really inexpensive floating shelves on either side of the curtains. And then from there, just the top edge behind those floating shelves, she's got in this bright orange color. This is just a great way of breaking up a wall and adding just a pop of a contrasting tone. And then she's painted it this way because she's displaying her collection of just like vintage handmade jugs. So I think that's really cute. You can even see like the line of the paint goes beyond the shelf itself. So you don't always have to have a natural breaking point for a feature color. You can just kind of fudge it yourself and just make a line in the paint of where that color stops. So this is just a really fun example of how you truly can add a feature paint in your home. Throughout the video, she also touches a lot on her philosophy when it comes to interior design. I really like how she's referred to herself almost like a magpie in her home. So this truly is the idea that when she's out and about and she's buying objects, she's picking out pieces that first and foremost she loves, whether or not she necessarily has a spot for them in her home. And I find this just works so much better to keep in mind rather than looking throughout your home and saying like, oh, you know what, I need a little something for this shelf here. Maybe it should be neutral. Maybe it should be a certain color. That kind of is dictating when you're going out and shopping. You've got certain criteria you're looking to meet beyond just finding pieces that speak to you. So I do think it's a much easier way to just go out and find pieces that you truly love or that speak to you, and then making your home work with those pieces rather than the opposite. She also comments that in her home, she's aiming to please herself, and that she always is sitting in different rooms throughout her home and taking in almost like different views from each different chair in her space. And this allows her more so to look throughout her home and see like different vignettes and just see different vantage points if they're working, if she's happy with them. Instead of looking at your space from such a large scale viewpoint, this really allows you to kind of narrow in on each different angle of your home. So I love that idea as well. She's also just like so cute, and I love the way that she does comment almost on the clutter in her home. She even uses the word vibes. She says something like, the vibes are really important. I don't want my home to look overly staged. So she definitely comments on the fact that she's happy to include a little bit of clutter. This almost gives the impression when you're walking through her home that her space is ever evolving. So she's never totally finished decorating her home. She's never totally landed on this as a finished spot. She just always has little bits and bobs that she's, considering in her space, or it's maybe giving her inspiration for a project that she's looking to do in the future. And I think this is just a really fun way of inviting your guests into the process of how you're decorating your home or the process of how you're working on things throughout your space. So that's really fun as well. And I just thought it was a really cute take when it comes to the actual clutter in her space. So the kitchen was actually an addition added on to the house itself. It started out actually as a back garden, and she just notes that like when it was a garden, it was really dark and dingy, but after transforming it into the kitchen section of her home, it actually feels a lot more light and bright. One thing I also love is that the idea of this kitchen really does feel like it still is in the backyard. I do feel like it has that garden feeling to it. And I think this is just a really nice way if you are renovating your home and you're adding on like a separate section. It doesn't always have to be a true representation of the rest of the space. Sometimes it is fun to make this addition just feel like it's its own separate entity and it has its own personality as well. So very similar to the rest of her home, this space just has lots of artwork and little trinkets being displayed. Something really fun and casual that I just absolutely love is she's got two pieces of art just at the back end of the dining room, and both pieces are from her travels. So one says Cuba underneath it, and then the other one says Rio, and she honestly has just hand painted on Cuba and Rio, and then she's painted just fun little squares around them. This is one of those examples of like a really sweet DIY that you could incorporate in your home. I feel like typically if I were to see something like this in somebody's home, my initial thoughts would be like, oh, that's like maybe a little bit tacky. It's maybe like a little too DIY. But just seeing it in a broader sense of her space and the fact that she's incorporated so much of her personality throughout, this is just such a fun detail. Like right away, it's a conversation starter. It's super casual, it's super fun, and I just love that her space doesn't feel like overly stuffy either. You really just feel comfortable and like you can be yourself because she's being herself. So because she's taken so much influence from the idea that this is almost like a garden space, she's put kind of like planter boxes around the dining room. Now, this is definitely a very unique take, and I think if you were not basing your dining room off of the idea of it being a garden, this probably wouldn't work out. But this is just like a really fun creative space for her. She's always sticking like different little pieces throughout the planters. She's painted it all this like dark graphite color. And she also mentions that periodically she's putting in different plants and things. So it does almost act like a true living indoor garden in this dining room area. So I love that. I love that the dining chairs are all different colors. She also notes that she's going to be painting these kitchen cabinets potentially like a brighter pop of red. I just want to say that the color they're currently painting is one of my absolute favorite colors for a kitchen cabinet. I just love because she's incorporating so many fun pops of color throughout the rest of the space that this more neutral brown shade on the cabinets is just so warm. It's so earthy. So if you were thinking, like if you're watching this video and you're currently thinking about painting your kitchen, this would be one of my top recommended colors. It's not quite gray, it's not quite brown, it's just a really warm neutral shade, and I think it's absolutely stunning in a kitchen. And obviously when it comes to kitchens, traditionally we would see just like a typical backsplash, but I love that she's taken the opportunity to feature her own artwork and she's hand painted a mural behind her stove. Is it the most polished or the most beautiful mural? Probably not, but again, this is just really showing off her personality, and it's just a fun, approachable way of looking at the space. I just love that she doesn't take her home so seriously. She'd rather take an opportunity to show off her art or her personality instead of just always putting in the most obvious object, which in this case would be an actual backsplash. And in one of my previous videos, I was talking about mixing different metal finishes throughout your space. She's done a great example of this in her kitchen. I think she's got like a chrome or polished nickel for her kitchen faucet. She's got like a dark bronze for her upper cabinet knobs. And then she's got more of like a bright brass on her lower cabinet knobs. So just a great visual representation of how you can layer different metal finishes as well as color and everything else in your home. Moving on to her more formal dining room, she's painted it this bold punch of red. This is kind of nostalgic for me because my parents actually have also just a bright red dining room. I find when it comes to like color theory and just how different colors make you feel in your space, red can just be very stimulating. And I think it's just a great color in a room like this if you're looking to promote conversation and you just want it to feel a little bit more lively. So I love the use of that red shade here. In this room, she's also featured yet another hand-painted dining table. So I think it's just really fun. Every single room that you go into, she's got some sort of hand-painted furniture piece. And on top of that, she also has a piano in this room that she's hand-painted with these really muted pastel shades. This would be a very inexpensive DIY. You really can pick up a piano for free off of Facebook Marketplace. Typically, people are just giving these away because they don't want to organize somebody to move it out, or they don't want to move it themselves to like a thrift store or anything like that. So usually just for the cost of picking it up and getting it taken to your own home, you can get them for basically free. And hand painting the actual piece is great, especially if there is just a little bit more wear and tear on it. This can just be a fun way of incorporating art in your home and just making a statement with a piece of furniture like this. I love the bookshelves in this room, and I do think this is just another great example of a space that feels quite cluttered in her home. It's very unorganized. Books are just kind of thrown in there, but I feel like if you were actually in this space, you can understand maybe what she's reading or what books are really sticking out, which items look like they've really been loved and touched. It adds a conversation starter. It adds personality to the space, and it just doesn't feel super fussy like she's meticulously placed each object in her home. I think everybody should aspire to have a garden room in their home. Again, just with a touch of nostalgia, my parents, they actually have a sunroom in their house. So it's just like a very screened in area. But my mom keeps lots of houseplants in there. She's kind of got like garden furniture in there. The breeze can come through. You can hear the birds in the summertime. It's just a really lovely room to be in. And I feel like that's what she's also created in her home here with her garden room. This also to me feels like her studio. So she's got this big kind of worn table at the end of the room. This is where she's got her paint set up, and you can kind of see different projects and paintings that she's working on. And again, I just feel like this is a fun way of inviting your guests into your life. They get a glimpse of what you do in your free time. You also kind of create the sense that, you know, your home isn't just like a staged area. Like this is a working space. This is where I live my life. And I just really love the fact that she's kind of opened up the door for you to see that side of her life. And we have yet another gallery wall in this room. She's painted it this graphite color, and she does talk about how it kind of has more of a wash to it. I know that these like lime washed walls have been kind of a trend recently. I've seen lots of designers talking about how they are kind of going out of trend now. Like you definitely shouldn't incorporate them in your home. And I will say I tend to agree. I wouldn't lime wash all of the walls in your space, but this is just a really ingenious way of incorporating it in your home. So just choosing to do one wall in a lime wash finish in kind of a dark, moody color, and then incorporating your gallery wall on top of it. I just think it's a wonderful way of using this paint technique as well as incorporating a gallery wall. I've also noted how every single object in her home really does feel curated and collected. Like as you walk through, I wouldn't say a lot of the objects look really high end or like overly expensive, but they do look hard to find. They definitely look like pieces that you couldn't just go to HomeSense or Home Goods and just pick up off the shelf. So this really goes to show that when you're traveling or when you're out with, friends and family, always be mindful of objects and pieces and moments that you could capture and incorporate in your home, because they just cannot be purchased from the store, and they just aren't going to have the same impact in your space that something that's near and dear to your heart will have in your home. And then the final space that she tours us through is her primary bedroom. I think it's really cute the way she kind of presents this space as it's been a haven for her. She truly loves the space, but she just feels like it's time to revamp the space. She's ready for a change. And I just think this is even myself, this is where I kind of come to in my own home. Even if I've had a room that looks nice, I've had it for, several months, there are just sometimes you look at your home and you're like, I'm ready for a change. I want to start fresh. So I just love that even in her home that she's worked on for decades, she's constantly looking at different angles and areas and saying, okay, it's time to totally change this. It's time to reimagine how this space could look. So I do love that. And just from a personal standpoint, I feel very connected to that theory as well. She also has just a beautiful color combination in this space. I love the blue on the walls and then the addition of that buttery yellow on the doorway. And then she's just carried these colors through some of the other accessories and textiles in the space. So again, she's just so great at working with color and mixing it throughout her space. I just think this is a wonderful example of how to do that throughout your home. And just like the rest of her space, she is using this room to really display her cherished knickknacks and other artifacts. I like the use of lots of the antique chairs in this space, as well as her antique headboard. And I think it's really fun that she's displaying pictures of what I think are her grandkids or her children on the bookshelves as well. This is a room where you really want to feel like your personality is shown and you're surrounded by things that you love most. So I am excited. I hope she does another home tour after she does some of these updates she's chatted about in the video. But this has just really been a very fun home tour video for me. Again, just with that personal connection to her paint brand. As I mentioned, watching these types of home tours is where I draw most of my inspiration from as a designer, and it really gets you thinking out of the box, and you're really seeing how some of the most creative people choose to decorate their home, and it's often quite different than what you see online or from maybe interior designers in your area. So I just think it's a really fun take on interior design. I'm going to keep adding to this series on my channel. I just feel like home tours like this one just give you so much inspiration for how you can decorate your own space. And I think it's just a fun glimpse for you guys to see what I'm watching and what's inspiring me and the design decisions that I'm making in my own space. And if you're somebody who also enjoys these types of home tour videos, definitely let me know in the comments which home tours are your favorites, and I'll try to feature them in this series as well. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this home tour as much as I did. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, definitely go to my page, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to like this video as well. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.